Good evening, everyone. Tonight is Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. It is now 6:30 p.m. This is the regular meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission. And tonight we do have a quorum. I have myself, Derek Parks as the chair. James, member, is here tonight. Kevin, is our alternate, he's present tonight, and we have Karen, a member here also, and we have members from the city staff, Ben, Director of Development Services, and Emma, Planning and Zoning Manager. The first item we have is the consent agenda item, Commissioners meetings from December the 5th, 2022. Did y'all have any questions? And also, too, we have Leroy Clark, Vice Chair, by Zoom. Do you have any questions about the minutes from last month? And if not, can I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve the meetings. December.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I have consent agenda item has been approved. Going down to the next agenda item is item 2. New business. And that's conduct a public hearing and consider zoning change from Plan Development 66R3 to Plan Development 66R4 for the development of a data center on the property described as a tract of land out of the Benjamin Fraser Survey, abstract number 371, Edmund Shirley Survey, abstract number 1013, and the Stone Survey, abstract number 1014, on the northwest corner of East Villa Road and North State Highway 342 in the city of Red Oak, Ellis County, Texas. Case number Z as in zebra, C as in cat, 22-39, requested by Alamo Mission LLC and Red Oak Industrial Development Corporation.
Good evening, Commissioners. Staff recommends that this item be postponed to the February 6th, 2023 P&Z meeting just because it's the month.
They didn't get all of their items in on time. We had sent them back some comments, and they didn't have time in between now and the Christmas holiday. They had a bunch of people out of their office, so they could not get the documents back.
Where would this be located? On the other side of Google?
No, this is Google. This is the Google site. And so they've already been zoned for allowances for data centers, but they just said, here's our area, we want to do a data center here, and we said, great. So we gave them that kind of holding zoning pattern, and as they are now ready to actually develop, they've come back with the site plan and the building elevations and all that. They didn't have quite all the information that we needed to present to you guys. So.
Okay. Thank you. I recommend postponing this agenda item 2 to February 6th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
A motion to postpone it to the next month.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Agenda item 2 will be postponed to February 6th meeting, Planning and Zoning meeting. The next agenda item is item 3. It is conduct a public hearing and consider zoning change from Plan Development 67R2 to Plan Development 67R3 for development of a minor automobile repair use on the property identified as Lot 1R, Block A of Hickory Creek Estates, located on the southwest corner of East Villa Road and Hickory Creek Drive, and currently addressed as 131 East Villa Road, City of Red Oak, Ellis County, Texas. Case number Z as in zebra, C as in cat, 22-38, requested by Take 5 Properties, SPV, LLC.
The applicant is proposing a 1,455 square feet quick service oil change facility on the 1.59-acre site. The facility will have 3 service bays, and customers will remain in their cars during the entire servicing for the most part. The use is permitted in the base zoning district of Commercial District 1. Access to the site will be from east of Villa Road, and there will be access to the feature site on the east hard corner that will lead to Hickory Creek Drive. There will be a 6-feet masonry screening wall to the south on this development to screen it from the residential subdivision to the south. The applicant is requesting to deviate from the landscape regulations, which requires that 50% of the required landscaping be located in the front yard. The applicant will be providing about 42% of the required front yard landscaping. To offset this deficiency, the applicant is providing a xeriscape landscape plan, which would be a low-maintenance plan that will utilize plants that have a low water demand. The dumpster is located in the corner of the site that may require complex maneuvering. The applicant has sent the site to the community waste disposal company, and to ensure the location of the site will be suitable for the dumpster truck access. Staff recommends approval of the request with the condition that CWD approves the location of the dumpster truck. I believe the applicant is online.
Thank you.
Just what you were asking earlier, James, you can kind of see on this area is not part of it. So they're just utilizing what essentially amounts to half of the lot.
Right.
And so this can be utilized for something later. We required them to do an access easement here with paving up to here so that, something, a driveway could be brought in like this and then down and then connect and either line up here or come further down here, just depending on what the use is.
If we put a driveway through there, that's cutting out usage for the next lot too, correct?
I'm sorry, say that again.
You're saying that the other driveways will come through and cut to meet
Yeah, I'm
with-
saying, so you could, follow my mouse here.
No, I saw what you was doing, but that's coming across the other lot.
Right, so that we don't have to give another access here. So this will be the main access for both lots off of Ovilla, or you can come onto Hickory Creek and there'd be another driveway here, but you could still access the Take 5. And similarly, you could access off of Ovilla and access whatever is here. So most likely what we'd have here is a long, narrow building surrounded by parking or driveways or whatever the use may be. But the drive aisles would allow you to get from Ovilla to whatever this becomes, and then still be able to exit Hickory or take Hickory and then make your right or left-hand turn, because if you'll remember, when Ovilla gets widened,
Right.
there will be no way to turn left. And
Right.
so if you want to exit the Take 5 or this lot, you'd have to take a right and then go down and try to make a U-turn, or what you most likely do is come through a shared access drive and then come here and then make
No, I get that.
left
I'm
into
just-
the light.
To me, it looks as though they're gonna take the lot and split it. The other person that buys the other half is gonna be very limited because of the driveway that we're proposing on them to take. And then we're gonna have to do the same and give them a reducement in landscaping as well.
Well, they won't have to do a reduction in landscaping because they'll have enough room here in the front.
But if we're taking a driveway and putting a driveway through there,
Right, but they'll have all this here that a lot of theirs is eaten up by this existing, we didn't mention that, this is an existing,
the curbway that's there.
yeah.
Right.
So they're just utilizing that, and so that takes up a lot of their frontage. So this lot, sure, wouldn't have to. Now, it's all a PE already,
Right.
so all we tried to do was say, hey, let's try to meet the minimum of what you would have in C1. And so they just couldn't by, a couple of square feet.
But could someone buy that lot and decide to build and put their building closer to the street and block that access? That's what I'm saying, because the problem.
No, I mean, they could ask to do that, but this would have to come back before the commission, and that wouldn't be our recommendation, because all of our ordinances and, for our subdivision ordinances require, if not strongly recommend, that there is, shared frontage access.
Right.
So because they have no frontage access onto Ovilla, which is gonna be almost any major
No, I get that
player
part,
that gets
but-
the lot.
To come down to where 7-Eleven is, that's gonna take up more than half of their lot that they can build right there. So basically, they're only gonna be able to utilize from,
Well, I've laid it out, I should have brought some, but I've laid it out with just some stick figure drawings that show you, you can put a building here, and the driveway comes in like this, and you've got parking on this side, parking on this side. I've also looked at it from, and we posed this question to the applicant, is like, hey, you guys aren't even using this big half back here, you can
see, I would
cut this
feel,
off.
I would feel more comfortable just saying that would be more, because that's gonna limit the people that we can put on the other half.
Yeah, and maybe you could make a third lot back here and have a small neighborhood service, and then now you have a better, you can put the dumpster facing right here, and maybe all three properties could share one dumpster.
Correct.
And then it's easy access for CWD and all this. But, that feedback was not, taken, and they're just trying to do this, unfortunately. And so without knowing what else is gonna come here, that's all I can really comment on.
Yeah, I get it.
I think you guys are not utilizing the land appropriately, or not appropriately, but not to the full advantage of what it could be if you guys master planned the lot up front.
All right.
Do they own the entire parcel?
Yes.
They own both
Well,
sides?
I'm sorry, I don't know if the Take 5 Oil, I don't know if they own the land yet, but the developer who owns the entire piece of land is, I believe, under contract to sell to Take 5.
The entire thing?
No, just the lot that they're developing.
This is a, public hearing, so, those who are in favor of this item, you can go first, and those who maybe have questions, or maybe against this item, you can go second. If we have someone here, those who are in favor of this item, you can go first. Explain the case, give us your name and your address, please, and, you have the floor.
I'm sorry, who did you call for?
Those are in favor of this item,
Yeah, okay,
you can go first.
sounds good.
State your name
John,
and your address.
John Linton, I'm representing Take 5 on this. I'm the architect of record as we go forward on this. Kevin Matson with Red Sky is the developer that we've been working with, and yes, they do own the whole lot. I don't think there's been any plans. I think, although they've taken your considerations for the back lot, and then of course, we're trying to get something in there nice on that corner lot. But I think to your point, trying to keep this up toward the front for service access. Most of these people do not get out of their cars; they come around the backside and queue up. So obviously having enough queuing in the back is what is our key to not overutilize land, and maybe leave some landscaping places and things like that along the residential side. But hopefully, of course, I think you were speaking pretty clearly about as we drag that shared access across to Hickory Creek there, that there'll be no access obviously off East Ovilla at that point, so they should have better landscaping on the corner. We're just providing that in and out access off of Ovilla for basically all the development here that's going on this corner. Is there anything specifically that I could answer? Other than, I know those were the concerns, so just trying to address those.
I don't have any at this time. Any questions? Okay. Thank you, John. Appreciate you, sir.
Bet.
Those, maybe that have questions or concerns, please state your name and your address. If not, can I have a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Motion to close the hearing.
All in favor?
Uh.
Right, the public hearing has been closed. Commissioners, do you have any questions or concerns regarding agenda item 3?
Can you, so on the back end where that open lot is, there's houses on the other side of there.
Yeah. hang
Is
on.
anyone gonna be
Pull up.
responsible for sheltering them from?
Yeah, so there's a screening wall along the back corner. So it's labeled C9 here, it goes along the property boundary like this, and that house sits right here.
Okay. And that is being put in by Take Five?
Yes. So, I don't know exactly where the property line is.
Richard, any more questions?
And can I have a motion, please?
I do have a question. So why are they trying to put the dumpster in this strange place to just straight back? We have no idea. The whole thing then is hinging on whether CWD will.
Right, and that's, we just wanted to make sure the motion had, that CWD would approve it. That way, if they need to move it or change the angle of it or something, we can just do that at the permit level versus having to bring it all the way back to commission and council. John, do you have any input on why the dumpster is located as it's located right now?
Just in regards to the angle or just at the proximity to the property, or I guess anything more specific?
The angle.
I mean, I think per your comment, we could look to rotate that. I mean, I think the thought was initially knowing that there's potential for future development and cross access, or maybe like you even brought up shared use of some of this, that continuation of that 24-foot at some point around to connect to something, like you said, whether it's some other service to the neighborhood or parking or something. I think this was maybe a little bit of a carryover from when there was a coffee shop on the corner and just some shared conditions. But I mean, if it is a concern, it would be pretty easy to rotate that 45 degrees and tuck it behind the lanes a little bit more and make it more of a T entry into it, and then be able to turn around and go out.
Okay, so, we did ask to provide this, so we could see, so we could understand, well, how's the truck gonna make it in and out there? And that's a lot of movement. And so that's why we said, well, we get into this gray area where it's like, what is our responsibility as the city to make sure that CWD can get in and out of there in 22 seconds instead of 36 seconds? And it's this kind of toss-up, and so as a courtesy, we try to work with CWD as much as possible because we want them to continue to provide us trash service at the best possible rate. And so if a 4-port turn causes them to use more gas and tear more tires, things like that, we're gonna err on the side of, well, let's make it easier for them and locate the thing where they want it, especially when we have space.
So with the way that is there, apparently from the looks of it, there's gonna be an extended driveway down. So that it
Possibly.
makes, so,
It's just, it's an allowance, right?
Right.
It's a future allowance that also serves the purpose of helping this turning movement.
Yeah, if something comes on board quickly, of course, and we can continue that driveway to the back and utilize the back of the property, then like you said, this sort of Y turn in is a lot less traffic. They just then go out the back. But if we're looking at really a long extended time before we can develop that back portion, or the corner lot becomes developed, then like you said, it may make more sense than to rotate the dumpster and, just to tuck it behind the building further, just, because get out of visual sight just a little bit more. But I mean, again, we could make that change if need be. I think this was a little bit of a carryover from the original designs when there was a coffee shop looking to sort of dual develop with the Take Five.
staff perspective, I think we just like to put in there that we want to know what CWD thinks about it, and we can just make those adjustments at the staff level at the time of permitting.
So the coffee shop thing, is that the one, that's something else that,
That they, I guess, at one point, they were talking with a coffee shop to partner and go on this at the same time, but that's not come to fruition.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that they, I think couldn't come to terms or whatever on the adjacent lot there. So right now searching for somebody to companion up with.
all right,
Any more questions, commissioners? Can I have a motion, please?
Go ahead. Okay, I move that we, approve this, with the condition that is okay with the dumpster location.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Days? None. So, agenda item 3, has been approved.
Is he right, vote?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, John, appreciate it.
Awesome. Hey, thank y'all for your time.
Commissioners, one more item here, discuss chapters 1 through 3 of Suburban Nation, the Suburban Nation, the rise of sprawl and the decline of the American dream. Emma sent us some questions, through email, so we can follow that format.
Yeah, once you leave the, what your thoughts were on.
How did y'all feel about the first 3 chapters?
Pretty informative. I like it, made sense, kind of basic, pretty much.
Okay.
How do you guys see some of those, or are you able to kind of look in the book and then see that, those examples in real life of how they occur either around you or in places you know and things like that? Is that kind of clear to you of where that's occurred and where it hasn't occurred and where?
Well, having spent time in a lot of urban areas,
In America or outside of America?
in America,
Okay.
and seeing the older, especially like East Coast, where, you know, things developed more around foot traffic, horse traffic, small areas or neighborhoods were the backbone of the cities, as opposed to out here where everything spreads out. And as it's developed out here, we've had more access to personal transportation than they had in the past.
Right.
And that's what's driven so much of the sprawl that we see here. I was visiting with an engineer one time who was on the North Central Expressway project when they first designed it. And out at the end of it, which was Mockingbird and Royal, which was, you know, all cow pastures and things like that at the time, they're like, who's ever gonna live out here? And he says, now I look at it and I go, why didn't we do it bigger and better?
Right.
You know, because it's, you know, nobody expected that kind of sprawl, that kind of growth, especially towards the north. I don't know what's, you know, I know that most cities tend to grow that direction for some reason. You don't see a lot of growth towards the south for some reason. I don't know if it's social or what drives that.
That's
A
why,
lot of that is sewer.
Sewer,
So
everything's
as
running
you go up-
downhill.
As you go up north, it all just drains down
That
to
makes
where you've
sense.
already got plants.
That
So
makes
if you
sense.
get south of Trinity, which is
Gonna
the
push
main, effluent through North Texas, it starts to go back that way, but all the plants are on the other side.
no, it's just like in Miami, if you look at 826 and the Dolphin Expressway, every 3 years they're expanding. It goes from 5 lane to 10 to 15. And, I mean, it's the same thing now with some of the highways here. They're going about 635 and expanding it more and more. So, I mean, eventually, it's going to have to make a change because we're growing. We surpassed, I think, Houston last year, or maybe the year before. So we're larger than Houston now, even though we don't see it. We see it on the road, but you don't picture it as us being larger than Houston, or ever getting there, but we're there.
Right, so the question becomes, okay, got all these people now, so we just add a bunch of lanes? I think that's kind of what.
Unfortunately, that's what's happening, but until we get serious with, I mean, I've been here in Texas for 18 years, and finally, about 6 years ago, they finally brought the rail into the airport from Dallas, but it still doesn't connect with, like here, I can't get to the airport, I go there every day.
Yeah.
Finally, now, Fort Worth has added a lane, and they're adding additional lines. But there is no focus on mass transit outside of the main corridor,
Right.
which is what we need.
Mostly a function of not being able to live and work in the same community.
Right.
Because we're so separated via Euclidean zoning where we get separated by our uses instead of our users, right? Users are what should be driving uses versus someone who sits down and goes,
Well,
or
like
should we put that, let's put it over here, let's put all the stuff over here, and everybody should live over here, but the high density people should live over here, and the low density people should live over here, so.
I think nowadays, though, if you look at like what I talked to the developers about Red Oak Golf Course, when you do mixed use, there are tons of examples of that. Cypress Waters up in Las Colinas, I think it is, or Capel, no, actually it's Capel. And then the same thing is Waters Edge up there. They're communities, but if you look at Waters Creek, they have Nokia, they have corporate offices, they have everything within that. So within a 2-mile radius, you have everything. You got a lake there, you have hotels there, you have restaurants there, you have bars, you have apartments, you have row houses, and you have at least 10 to 15 major corporations like Nokia and all of them that are there. So that's something that you and I talked about before, is eventually get into mixed use and bring in businesses like Google and the data centers, but bring it on a bigger scale, because we have the land. Do the same thing that they're doing in Las Colinas and those areas. We just got to get the sewer in. And that's the problem. We have the land, and we can get the sewer part fixed. No one's going to come here. I mean, now that Jerry and them are developing down at 287 and 35, eventually more people will come down here. But if we're not ready for them, they're going to bypass us and go straight to Waxahachie and Middle Oregon.
So, yeah, we just talked about how, mixed use is not something that's very prominent.
Here,
Yes,
but
it's
everywhere
strong.
else it is, yeah.
Right, so what are other components that you all noticed in chapter 1 that really differentiate a traditional neighborhood from?
Well, I think about, we're maybe come up with some kind of a hybrid solution at some point, because I think about, area near Washington DC that we stay at, Rock Creek. Everything you need is within walking distance, except for work. And that's all downtown around the Capitol for the most part, or, over in Virginia or over in Baltimore.
Manassas.
But there's a train station. In order for us to develop a neighborhood like that, we still have to drive 30 miles to get downtown. Because there is no light rail from here up there. And, from there, from Rock Creek to downtown's a 10-minute train ride. But it's only 5 or 6 miles, maybe. Whereas downtown, and if you want to go north of that, you want to go all the way to the north side of 635, you're talking about still, an hour's train ride.
Right.
And I looked one time, I was working up in Richards, at what it would take to get from here to my office in Richards. And it was 2 hours and 10 minutes. That's if I didn't miss a connection. I'm like, I can drive it in an hour. Even on a bad traffic day, I can do it in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So why do public transportation when my transportation's more reliable and more efficient? That's why there's so many of us out on the freeways.
Yeah.
Because it's not efficient, it doesn't get you to where you need to be.
And it's like,
And after you get there, it's still, then you gotta go to a feeder and maybe a second feeder to get where you wanna go. And the further you get away from that main line, the longer it takes, the longer the interval between your next connection.
and I don't get, I mean, eventually maybe US being the superpower we are, we will get away, because when you go to Europe, you go to Frankfurt, Munich, Amsterdam, you just jump on a train and go from the
They're all more
airport.
densely packed, you know, to get from one part of Texas to another,
Yeah.
you're crossing a whole bunch of emptiness that they
Yeah.
just don't wanna pay for the rail for that.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just thinking when you can get on the train in London and be in Paris in a couple hours, or like us, we went from Munich, from Frankfurt to Munich, to Austria, to Bologna, Italy, on the same train. I mean, you just jump on there and just, it makes life easier. You don't have to worry about the cars, you don't have to worry about it.
Amtrak from Dallas to San Antonio is a 10-hour ride.
What?
10 hours.
You stop at every little town.
Oh, my God.
It must stop everywhere, but it's 10 hours.
Oh, my
And it only runs 3 days a week.
That's not.
It's just our infrastructure for mass transit.
Another point
Sucks.
you made in this chapter, which I've heard talk about before, is how the sprawl, the infrastructure needed for the sprawl doesn't pay for itself. Not enough. When you own this much property, the tax you pay versus 10 people paying on little plots,
Right.
paying for the road that gets to it.
I visited one of those developments in Florida. that I think Disney was the impetus behind it, but
Oh,
everything was there.
So, Celebration,
Was that it?
yes.
Yeah. Everybody had front porches, you could walk everywhere, the grocery store, the mailbox, the post office, everything was within walking distance, like it used to be back in the day.
They're doing one like that similar in this, Cedar Hill, it's right there behind the post office, where they got this similar, the way the houses are, it's almost like the old neighborhoods where you come out on the porch and wave, but, it's,
I would love to live someplace where I could walk down the street for dinner.
let me ask you a question.
But from my house to the nearest restaurant is probably a 25, 30-minute walk, and I've got to cross the Villa Road.
Uncomfortable walk.
And an uncomfortable,
Whereas
yeah.
if you were in DC, where you're walking 10 feet away from a 10-story building along an edge that has all 10, 8, 6, 4-story buildings, it's a very comfortable walk, and it doesn't seem as long. I'll talk a lot about edge conditions, I don't know if you remember we talked about edge conditions when you're trying to create a walkable space, but that's one of the big reasons people like to walk in those places.
Well, we talked about before, if we were able to finally develop this like we were talking about, that Lee and all this was working on, if we're able to develop this area here into restaurants, mom and pop shops, hotels and stuff, we could do a walkway where then it's only 5 minutes to that. Because if you look at this area here out here, if you compare it to Northwest Highway where all the Papados and all of them, we have a better space. We just have to get the right developments. We have one guy looking for a hotel here, Starbucks, restaurants. Then we would get not only people from Reno, we would get people from Avila, from Barris, because we don't have a central place. Waxahachie down in 77, they're building that with they got Fish City going in, they got 3 Mexican restaurants, another restaurant going in.
Oh, there in front of Atwoods?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're developing that, kind of like what we wanted to do here, but nicer here with the lake. So we have the opportunity to bring something of that nature between this.
Yeah. What is, There in Arlington, between Collins and Matlock, on the north side of 20, Highlands.
Yes,
Yeah, I know that, you know, that's not everything we're talking about, but that's nice because you can go, you can park, you can eat, you can shop. You know, they've got, on the second level, they've got commercial offices, they've got a branch of Texas A&M
well, if you look,
there. They've got all kinds of things going on in that. I know it's not practical to do a Rock Creek type scenario here because we don't have the population density to support the number of restaurants and shops. You know,
well,
where, you know, we've got less people in Red Oak than they've got in 3 square blocks because of the high rises and everything. But if we could find some happy medium to where we're not just popping up, you know, drive-through restaurants and
if you look at Waters Creek up in Allen,
mhm.
where there's, Cheesecake Factory and all that, that's where Lee and I went and got this information, go up there. There's walking trails, there's a smaller pond than what we have. There's, hotels there, there's sushi, there's
I think I know what
apartments.
you're talking about.
That's where I've been pushing the city for probably 15 years to go that direction, because we can get that, but it just depends on the developer. If we as a planning zone stand together in what we want to bring to the city, it's not only what's in Red Oak, you gotta look at, majority of the people that comes to this Walmart come from DeSoto, come from Lancaster, from everywhere. So we have I-35, which a lot of people don't have, and we're gonna have Loop 12. So if we get this right and design the city right, we will be the next Plano, but in a smaller version, as long as we bring those things that people like
So
and that we're missing.
what design criteria do you think the city could, or developers could implement to move further from sprawl?
Well, Lee and them have one, I'll send it to you. We did a marked layout of, like, beside Tajans, there's another restaurant in front of Tajans. Then along the side here, you have the walkways, and then you have like small mom and pop businesses along there, just like up there. They have like a little, coffee shop that's not a national brand. They have something like Nothing But Kinks, but more or less on the family side. Just create, I mean, we have the roads and everything lined out in positions, but it would be based with something like, O's Foods up there by where the trailer station was up there.
Ideally, you'd have some housing mixed in,
Correct.
get a real, actual
Correct,
place
yes.
to live and shop.
So in that kind of like neighborhood with residential and commercial, how do you think that it could be a more walkable, a community that people have more connection, just a healthier environment for the people that are actually going to live there, an environment that'll be more inviting?
Well, I think with that, you would get more people that would take a 10-minute walk to come over here and do that. Because if you look at, the best example, if I could say, is probably Cedar Hill. It's a small complex, it's not huge. But if you go over there, you got grandparents out there with grandkids, and they got the little ice cream shop, the pretzel shop. And people just migrate there, and you could walk. It would be better for us because people literally could walk down, Red Oak Road, come across and come here. And then we got this development up here, which is what, that's gonna be about 1.5 miles down. If we had a way for them to walk down safely to come here.
Right, yeah, and that's what you just touched on.
Yeah.
So perhaps more narrow streets,
Yeah.
trees along.
The sidewalks, yeah,
Right,
sidewalks and stuff like that.
yeah.
And then, we have an opportunity with this lake as well, because depending on how we do it, the same place I'm telling you in Los Colinas, which we should go up there one day, they have a little thing where they do live music out there on the weekends. They'll play, different genres of music, and it's free. It's like like an amphitheater, but you're just sitting out there by the lake. And then sometimes they show movies, sometimes just give people somewhere to go to kind of migrate to this area. Because we're gonna have this building here that we can utilize for something in that regards. That could go towards being something for the community.
I can see cities developing cities in Texas developing pockets where they have some shopping for them together.
Yeah.
And I'm not familiar with the place that has Nokia around it, I think that's great, they have places you can work as well. But I have a hard time imagining being able to get through a big area, big development that's where you can live and work and shop. And you,
Well, Clear Fork is
people
another
really
one.
like their sprawl, they want their half-acre lots.
Well, if you look at Clear Fork is another example of that, where you've got all these restaurants, apartments, condos, they got the Louis Vuitton shops, and all these high-end restaurants. And they're building actually a subdivision, probably 10 times our size, that's coming right into that, where you can walk over there. That's something that we probably, I think, seeing information, we should do a trip to look at these communities as they're growing. A lot of people are giving up the houses and going because you can walk downstairs. I have a design I gotta find out from you if I could show it to them that we were working on before on this golf park where it would have been condos, apartments, and a hotel, and then at the bottom there would have been a grocery store, office space for people that work from home. Let's say you need a conference. You could go there and not bring them into your house. And you could have a section where you go in and do that. You have a dentist there, you have a dry cleaners there, you have a gym there. And all of this would have been within probably less than 5 square miles. And then on the rooftop, there was actually a dog park and a park where you can walk. But I mean, it's starting to happen. There are a lot of examples of it here in Texas already. I just think as things go further north, it's ending, so now it's slowly coming back this way. But Clear Fork, Water's Edge, and Cypress Waters, if you look at those 3 communities online, you'll see how things started to build around them as well, because people want to be able to do that.
Well, just look at right down the road in Waxahachie.
Yeah,
You know, there's the townhomes downtown. There's, new houses being built to the north of downtown, just across from the old First Baptist Church, some nice-looking houses.
yeah,
And then there's the whole renaissance, you know, buying all the old houses and remodeling them. But the advantage that Waxahachie has that we don't is they've got a core.
yeah,
You know, they've got a downtown that people grow out from.
yeah.
Now, they're being drawn back to it. And as they come back to town, guess what's happening? There's more restaurants, there's more shops. You know, it's a nice place to go and visit.
It's restaurant.
And unfortunately, right now, we don't have that. We need a core.
I think we'll get it once. They finally put the sign up, I think it says spring, so by June, we should have the movie theater. And then depending on how we're able to guide that shopping center, if it's a shopping center that is going to be something that people want to go to, or is it just going to be like the one on Waxahachie where it's a Tuesday morning, or academy, and whatever? But the one right there at Atwood, that is, if you look at the sign, it is going to be apartments and restaurants and everything. So another eat, live, work, play type. Because for the developer, they get more money out of it. You're stacking people, and you also you can go to a Market Street and say, hey, here's 2,000 residents. That's your core people right there. Why would I leave my apartment and go to Walmart when I got Market Street right here?
But even the Waxahachie one around, Fish City, Atwood and all that doesn't, I don't know what it's gonna look like when they get apartments in, but it doesn't feel like downtown Waxahachie.
Right, no.
I assume they have Starbucks, I don't remember, but, you know, it just feels like having to get in your car to drive across to the, you know,
Yeah.
the few stores down to get to the place you wanna go. It doesn't
Well, they-
feel like.
People got comfortable to walk.
Yeah.
Right.
Understand
Well,
what I'm
and-
talking
Right.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
People not really used to it.
yeah.
I guess Texas, me being
Texas people want, because like,
You know, I used to walk
in Virginia, and
people
DC,
that
those
go
areas.
there, people that move down so where they're from other cities, and they want to see what you're talking about. People move south, kind of like I did, you trying to get away from all that traffic, you want to come out here.
but then when you look
But
at,
I know it's not gonna stay the same, but, you know.
well, but look, when you want good sushi, where are you gonna go? You gotta go back north to Las Colinas, to Plano. You want a good steak, where are you gonna go? There's nowhere here, right? And if you can't say Sawgrass because the quality went down.
And
You still-
some people like, you know, some people like living down here and then driving up north
Yeah.
and coming back. I work in Athens. I love it. My wife is like, I know you eat.
Yeah, but
I'm-
perfect example, look at Addison Circle.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, that was one of the stars for the one in Texas. You got Addison Circle where you have that community, but in walking distance, you've got the street right there, the main street that comes across, where all the restaurants. Beltline.
Beltline.
You got every restaurant, you got Sam's, you got everything right there.
But then you gotta look at, all the office buildings up there too.
Yeah.
I mean, they got a lot of foot traffic up
Yeah,
there. I mean, you have to think about that too. They have a lot.
Yeah.
Plus too, the developers, when they start buying land and things of that sort, it has to be financially feasible for them too. You can have the best ideas, but if they think they can't make their money back, and, you know, whatever they return eventually,
right.
they're gonna pass it by. I mean, it has to work, you know, financially, it has to work.
So which is first, chicken or the egg? Do the people come, or do we give them, something to attract them?
It's always people first, and,
Right.
Yeah, it's always people first.
Well,
Depends on
How
who has money, right?
how do we keep doing that? We're all for shop local, but guys, face it, how many of us, 80% of our purchases we make somewhere outside of Red Oak?
oh, yeah,
Unless you're shopping online.
but we're doing it because we have no choice, really.
Yeah, I mean, you know, our staples come from Walmart and Brookshire's. Everything else comes from somewhere else. If you're gonna go eat, we're pretty much gonna go someplace else.
But, you know,
And
people
it's very
order food
frustrating.
online, people doing, you know, Uber Eats and all that stuff now, so that's why. I mean, I think I see her like, maybe
Yeah,
once
but
every
you
3
don't
months.
really want to do that.
She don't even go outside.
Now, how far is Uber Eats gonna go? Are they gonna bring me stuff
Well,
from Apache or?
My wife works,
Hey, we got-
my wife works for Target.
They gotta bring us stuff from Papa Do's over in Duncanville?
Guess if you pay
You know?
Well, they will,
Until you get to that point.
but when people start delivering food, you gotta look at that too, because my wife works at the Starbucks at Target. People come in and get drinks, and they drink out of people's drinks, and they went in the bathroom and seen people there with the food on the floor. So, I mean,
Yeah, you're gonna have that. And now, we ordered some food from a lady before. I really brought it up. I was
Oh,
surprised.
my gosh.
And she was
It must be good.
She was smiling the whole time. I think my wife maybe gave her a big tip.
Yeah.
She was smiling, and I'm like, this lady came from where?
but do we know any more of when Jerry and them started? Because when they started development on 287, that's gonna be hotels, restaurants, and distribution centers. I think that will drive more people this way. And unfortunately, we kind of have a waiting game, because as we approve all these subdivisions and apartments and things along that line, the people will come. But I think we have to protect the lands that we have here to make people want to be in Red Oak.
Plus,
Yeah,
too,
because-
the retailers got their criteria also.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Just because, you know, hey, they
Well,
see people, and
you
they're not
see they're
gonna
clearing-
put it there.
They're clearing the land over here
By the Hampton.
by the
What's that
Hampton.
gonna be? I heard some big box?
they're clearing it to make it more,
But they pitched it as a shopping center.
Okay, so there's nothing
They'd like
planned
to
for
put
it, they're
it
just prepping.
it's been zoned, for basically big box retail.
Right.
Okay, but there's nothing-
They have not done a site plan or
Okay.
anything that would, just submit a permit.
So, I mean, we
So how
have,
can a city say, okay, we want development that's live and work and shop?
mixtures.
I mean, like, so if someone wanted to develop the golf course, could we say, you have to do it like this? We don't want just these townhomes and a big box store, we want all walk and work. We have the ability to say that kind of thing with
Okay. Because we
That's
have a
the problem.
comprehensive plan, which gives us that latitude to say, okay, we do want mixed use, we do want this big box, we do want the entertainment venue, so we're gonna make sure that we definitely get them on the golf course.
But the problem with that, because I work with one of the developers, a lot of that is in the floodplain. So they got a lot of land that's not gonna be usable
Yeah.
because of that creek.
Yeah, but I think what she was asking was, when a developer comes in, can we tell them, we wanna live, work, play?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, mixed use, yeah,
Development,
mixed use.
yeah. And I think that really just comes from don't make it where this is office over here, and this is restaurant right here, and this is single family large lot, this is single family small lot, you know, it's just like, let's just make a development that works, that people wanna walk on.
Can I send you,
You couldn't, like she said, you can't do that. You could, this is.
That would be our that could be your recommendation to the city council.
Then we could make a recommendation to you all, and you all.
can I send Emma some, examples of these communities that are mixed use? And then you can send it to them just to look at? Because I think even with the spaces we have here, maybe not so much the one at Athens, it would be smaller, but with this area here, as well as the golf course, if that's something we kind of start playing with, it could be beneficial, and it could, I mean, because again, what's Legacy at Plano? That's basically what that is, Legacy West, same type of thing. And as we're building more homes, and Mark Science is building more homes, we can get a city center here. We just have to make the investment, like you said, with sewer and stuff like that. That was another issue with that property over there.
And what do you see the developers, when they look at Red Oak and Amherst County, are they looking at people first? They're like, okay, you don't have the population for the ideas you have?
That's what the EDC finds when they talk to
Yeah.
businesses, they say
Yeah.
we want more households, we want
Right.
more.
There's not enough
So that's what latches on to those restaurants you're talking about. They
Well,
don't have
well, some of them I was talking to, they were interested because they saw the foresight, but now that with us getting apartments and these other subdivisions, those potential rooftops are probably, rooftops will increase once they're open in these subdivisions, at least by 4,000.
Probably not that much.
Well, I'm talking about with the oaks and all that.
Yeah.
If they're all done,
Probably 3,000.
okay.
Then.
You're talking about currently or as?
No,
Once
with
they
the
finish.
stuff, yeah,
Once
once
they
they finish, yeah.
Yeah. All
'Cause
the
I
stuff
met-
that's kinda going on.
I got lucky and met with the vice president of the regional of Wells Fargo Bank. I go in and talk to the manager, and they came in and was talking. I said, what are you guys gonna do with this Wells Fargo Bank? Eventually, the shopping center coming, Chase is gonna come in, and I said, we're working on it. We're finally gonna get a second ATM. We've been pushing them and begging them for 2.5 years, and we're now finally getting a second ATM. It's gonna be on the back end, they're not gonna be on the front end.
So were there any like notions in the book that you all thought were counterintuitive? Why is that this actually encourage sustainable development?
I think it's more of encouragement, like I said, we've probably seen most of these, like chapter 1, chapter 2, Allen and those newer cities, Frisco. You see, when you go up there, you see this, so.
What did you all think about NIMBYism and banana? Not in my backyard, built absolutely nothing.
Oh, you definitely get that head right up.
Yeah, you have those two.
You definitely get that head right up. They don't want
Those
anything.
two sets of individuals up north and south, wherever you go.
When we've lost 4 neighbors, and I know personally, for the same thing. One went to Maypearl, the other one went to Tyler. Oh, it's getting too crowded over here. I'm like, what?
See, that's, these cities are made up of 2 or 3 different types of needs. So you have to counter to all of them and try to figure out how to make it work for everybody.
But you also have to just keep things exact where they are, not sustainable, you don't have sustainable cities.
Correct.
And
So,
then you're definitely not gonna get, if you keep things the way they are, you're not gonna get anything, right? And if everybody just says, well, you can do that somewhere else, just not in my backyard, then you still don't get.
people aren't gonna buy their houses when those people
Right.
move
Right.
out, and
Right.
so you're not gonna.
Right, and that'll affect sustainability as well.
So, from a city standpoint, because you and I've had this conversation, I think, they would prefer more neighborhoods like they're building as opposed to ones like ours, because basically the 3 of us, we're a drag, because we're in the larger lot.
From a financial standpoint,
Right.
I mean, from a property tax to services rendered, yeah. But you have to have all those things in the city, right? All those different types of homes and lot sizes. I think we've got all the big lots and bigger houses that have been developed over the past 30 years, because that's just what we did in Ellis County, right? That's how we do it in Ellis County. We've got big houses and big lots. Now everyone's going, wait a minute, we can't get a restaurant because we've only got 4,000 houses in the whole city, you know, what do we do? So it's, instead of having that mix of development types over the years, the NIMBYism has kept out all other types of development until very, very recently, right? And so, which is why you're getting more commercial developers looking at doing commercial stuff, because there's, not only great access to big roads with high volumes of traffic, but now their rooftops are starting to come as well.
Do you see, Luke 12, Luke 9, bringing an impact, and in how long do you think that would take?
A while. You still have Ovilla. Now, it'll be faster, because if you're going from 45 to 35, it'll be much faster to go Luke 9. But there's more projected traffic on Ovilla Road, and so that's why it's getting widened, and it will bring more people, and there will be more development along Ovilla. So Luke 9 is probably a much longer play, but it's, it's kind of important to hold back the tracks that are adjacent to it for that higher.
Is there any projection when they're gonna go west?
Projection of what?
When they're gonna go the opposite direction,
They
west?
haven't figured out their path yet, they're still working that out.
They're still working on it.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, west. They just held, TxDOT just did a public hearing. We participated and gave them some feedback about alignment. The alignment was set through Red Oak. The alignment is set through Red Oak. What we gave them feedback on was just to make sure that they would build the lanes that are in Red Oak versus the lanes that are in Glen Heights. So,
Right.
if you guys remember, they're not doing the big highway, right? They've got the right of way for the highway, but the first thing they're gonna do is just 2 lanes, just
The
like.
service roads,
Yeah, just the service road. And so we're saying, hey, build the south service lane, don't do the north service lane.
Gotcha.
Build the south one, because that touches Red Oak. But we have those opportunities for commercial along that.
Okay.
Still don't know that it's forthcoming, as far as traffic volumes to support that commercial, but if we've got the residential to support it, at least maybe someone will, take a chance.
From a staff perspective, bending back to you guys, what do you think that Red Oak needs to change? Do we need more subdivisions? Do we need more condos or townhomes?
You're gonna have varying opinions from various leaders and, elected positions as well. From solely my standpoint, which is from an engineering standpoint, is we have no sewer, and we have no way to get sewer at a feasible cost within the bounds of our current, monetary,
Right.
bonding capacity. And so, to me, I am a strong advocate of densifying the areas that already have sewer. So, these areas we don't have sewer, where we're doing subdivisions with the half-acre lots, I'm like, well, that's great. We've got the half-acre lots, they're on septic, that provides the other component to balance the density, right? You've got the density that's on sewer, and then you've got the large lots that are on septic. So, but that's from my dumb engineering brain that just says, money and sewer. There's a different aspect about community building that is kind of left to the leaders of the city, you guys, as being the ones that live here, right? And what you want to see, what you want you want your kids to move back here, and all that. So, that's something you want to lead from your position, that you have here.
How does the city solve that sewer problem you're talking about?
To truly solve it would be a big co-op between multiple cities most likely around Ellis County, to try and get to some point where we could all share, you know, different tributaries or sewer lines that come to a singular treatment plant. Fortunately, that requires miles and miles and miles of sewer lines, as well as a plant, and the plant has to be operated.
Right.
Cost as well, so it's a mega $1 million project.
Right.
I don't know what, I can't even put a number on, $100 million.
Probably,
You know,
I would
something
say
like
about
that.
100 to 200 million.
Yes, so it would be a collective.
It would be a
right? Collective of cities and even the county. I don't think the county, they don't provide sewer, but I don't know if they would get involved just to say like, hey, let's develop Ellis County. Just for the
Well,
growth of the
Lancaster
county, but I
has that
think.
issue too, so.
Maybe you think that's part of the conversation that needs to be taken from.
It is.
Maybe just sit down with everybody, like, hey, this is what we trying to do.
Yeah, but, you know, knowing some of the politics of the other surrounding cities and their limited capacity, you know, they think we're rich. They think we just got all the money, we're just doing all these crazy things, and, so they're even more, I guess, strapped, from a financial standpoint to even be able to participate in that type of thing.
I mean, your background's more city planning, isn't it? So or how Roanoke might be best served, or what kind of growth we should, residential, or any of it, I guess.
In general, compared to,
So that's actually one of the points that was mentioned in chapter 3 is moving up without moving out. So having a diversity of housing within one area rather than having everything within a pod. And I know that's how it typically is here, is that, you know, you'll have maybe your $350,000 homes, your $230,000 homes, but that type of segregation has been, well, income segregation has been displayed here, so perhaps including some sort of diversity so that neighbors don't have to move out of the community in order to get, larger lot, or maybe someone's moving up from condo up to family home.
well, that's something funny, because we were looking to move, because I wanted to move up but down, so leaving from where we live over here, Large Lawns, I went to Mansfield, or in Somerset. Beautiful homes, great new designs, $650,000. My wife finally got her to go over there when time I was into value. She walked out the backyard of this place. She goes, nope, that's it, let's go. There was no parking. I mean, literally 2 cars in the driveway, narrow streets. I mean, once you're inside that box, you're in heaven. But you walk out, there's a neighbor's house there, the neighbor house here, the neighbor house, for $650,000.
So that's in
We have some
Yeah,
friends,
in Somerset.
we have some friends that bought one of those houses,
Yeah,
and you're right. I mean, his whole yard
yes,
is barely as big as our front yard.
yeah,
And for some people, they don't want to do yard work,
yeah.
Well, you know, that's nice if you don't want,
But the developers come to us and they say, I want to build a neighborhood with all the same size houses, pretty much, right? Because it's easier for them.
Right.
That's more
To
money.
just have a set of plans, so we have to convince the developers that you should have mixed housing, et cetera.
Right, and then another component to encourage that sort of mixed residential housing is having maybe the same architectural design, so that it's not really, there's not really a huge difference when you're driving down the street. So it's not like, oh, here's a Mediterranean. You can have like Mediterranean style homes, so like apartments, condos, single family homes, and it really blends in.
Yes.
So that's another thing to consider, that
Yeah, so it's allowing more than a single unit, but still within the scale of a home.
Right.
So maybe it's a duplex, but it's only got one front door, and it's the same size as a regular house,
Correct.
and you don't even know it's a duplex.
Right,
With
Correct.
parking in the back or whatever.
right.
You
Yeah.
still want that up north.
I lived in Glen Heights for 20-plus years, and moved over here. And there was a neighborhood over there, just the other day, that I've driven by 20 years. Just noticed the other day that it's duplexes. Because of the design, it doesn't look like a duplex. You know, a duplex is just a mirror image, one side and the other side, but these were different.
Right,
And had never noticed it.
right,
So it can be done, it can be done nicely.
right.
But I liked what Emma was saying about you've gotta have the variety, so that when somebody, rather than move from here to Maypearl, or from here to Mansfield, they move from one neighborhood to a nicer neighborhood.
Or even within the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
Or within the same neighborhood. Or as they get older, they move from, you know, the house that they're in, which is 2,500 square feet, to 1,800 square feet, because the kids are gone.
Right.
And we've got some new low, not low, I wasn't gonna say low, older, restriction housing.
Right.
You know, some of those neighborhoods, but you know what, I've driven through some of those neighborhoods. You talk about Mansfield being tight as far as distance between houses. Some of those are, you know, even less. I mean, you almost feel
But
like
that's where
you
you
can
get
touch
your
both.
walkability. I mean, if you're on 1 acre lots, you're not a walkable neighborhood. If
Yeah,
you're,
that's
if you're
right.
close together, that's one of the things, one of the advantages of it.
Although they
The other
walk
thing
in
I
our
couldn't
neighborhood a
figure,
lot.
in one of those older, not retirement, but 55-plus type neighborhoods, lots of two-story houses.
Yeah.
And I know that's so they get more square footage, because you can go up rather than out. But the people that are buying it are in their last home. Why would why would somebody in their last home want 2 stories? I don't understand. Oh, good, I'm not the only one who questioned that.
The apartments that's going in over here,
If you
some
need
of
them
them,
good, you're fine, right?
these apartments over here, they have, some of them have garages and they're upstairs, downstairs, girl.
Like it's, okay, the
Yeah.
one,
Because they got garages and upstairs, downstairs. No, I'm just saying, I was just thinking, because it looked like some of them have garages, and they have the separate garages out there too.
You know, I was watching as those were being built, and I'm like, how are they gonna get some of the furniture up to some of those
Yeah.
second floor? Because you step through the door into the stairway,
And it's right there.
straight up. I mean, there's a 4x4 landing, I mean, it's all gonna be futons and.
Yeah, that's their
and-
standard plan. They built that same apartment all over Texas, so.
People are renting them all over.
I guess people
Yeah.
figure it out.
We asked Leroy, he got anything to say? He's still there? Leroy?
I was just going to give props to the city. I appreciate them. They seem to have a good idea when it comes to these developments. They always set aside a commercial aspect for it. I don't know if that's the developers or if that's the city champion for that, but it always comes in handy, it seems.
No, that's us. They hate it.
They saved us a lot of time,
and
correct?
that's also part of the comprehensive plan, that, because I know the book, mentioned that there could be dozens and dozens of zoning districts that, separate single-family dwellings to the density to the T. But at least with the comprehensive plan, it allows for single-family, commercial, neighborhood uses to be in the same vicinity, so you can create some sort of walkability.
I liked or I didn't like, but I found it interesting, one of the examples they gave, about the conflicting regulations. You know, they say, okay, here's, a neighborhood, it's gotta be walkable and everything, and then you tell them they have to put an 8-foot fence around the commercial development. So you have to walk 1.5 miles to get to something that's, 100 yards away. So,
Yeah,
we paint ourselves in the corners all the time with things like that. And, I can see where it would be frustrating. You guys try and manage that.
Right. Well, luckily with the PDs, we do a lot of PDs, which is very atypical, but it allows you to look at it and go, well, here's the code says this, but that doesn't make sense in this situation, so we recommend doing this instead.
And gives some flexibility.
Yeah, but sometimes, when a lot of people, they, because of their, just horrific, experiences in other cities with zoning, they say, well, we don't wanna change zoning, we just wanna follow the rules, and you're like, okay, it's not gonna work out good,
Yeah.
you know, or it's gonna cost you extra. So we always encourage PDs, just to get that little higher level of control, but also ultimately what we feel like is a better product
Right.
that still meets the intent of the overall zoning code.
Are we gonna find ourselves doing a bunch of that as they widen Ovilla Road? We were
Yeah.
talking the other day about
I thought
all
we gave
those
you guys
buildings
permission
along
to
there
do
that are going to be unusable because there's not parking, we can't do the landscaping.
Yeah, so if they just continue what they're doing, and they lose their parking and all this, we're not gonna knock on their door and tell them they have to change the zoning.
Okay.
But if they sell the property and then the new owner wants a CO, then we have to
Yeah.
follow that, right? So basically, the effect of the taking immediately makes them what we call non-conforming, which is sometimes described as grandfathering. So they're grandfathered in even though they've lost this parking or sign or whatever. But, for example, today, someone just called us and was like, hey, TxDOT just took down my sign from the land they bought, can I put up a new one? And we're like, no, come back and change your zoning, lost all this parking and all this landscaping too, we can't allow you to do anything except for what you were doing right this second, right when that got torn down, basically. And so, yeah, you'll probably see some, but.
So is
Are we gonna-
TxDOT,
Go ahead.
is TxDOT responsible for putting the sign back up?
No,
Depends on
well, yes, you're right, so it depends on the deal that they've struck with the right of way, but what they're typically doing is just paying straight up with no
So
secondary.
I'm paying you for the land and you figure out what you gotta do.
They pay you for the sign.
They paid for the sign, yeah,
Okay.
so, and in some cases, if TxDOT has made the landowner non-conforming, they will pay them for the full value of the property, building and all.
Oh, wow.
And so that's when we start looking at, that's when we can kind of go, okay, now, well, we don't feel bad for not allowing you to continue. Because you've been paid the full market value of your property and you still have it,
Yeah.
right? So don't come to me with this big sob story about you getting screwed by everybody and now we won't give you your zoning. You've been paid your full value. You can either do a PD and maybe you rearrange your site a little, or maybe you have to take down part of your building. I don't know what the solution is.
That's good for us to know, because they will come in and say, it's killing their business, but
Yeah.
their business that they paid for. Yeah.
So, this may not be a proper example, but AutoZone, they're already building a new one over in Glen Heights. Is the AutoZone in Red Oak going away?
No, so we've been working with them, to try and maintain the appropriate amount of parking, right?
Yeah, parking and, landscaping.
So part of what TxDOT does is they also hire planners to go dig through our code, figure out all the things that are required, and then they provide a site plan to the owner to say, hey, we're not making you non-conforming because you can do this, and here, as part of our land taking, we'll also pay an additional amount so that you can add this parking.
Oh, wow.
So, for example, AutoZone they're adding some of their parking so that they can remain in conformance.
Because that's a bad parking situation at that store anyway.
I know, and I guess, I don't know when that was done,
Yeah.
a long time ago.
Well, I noticed they were doing some of the preliminary work, and it looked like they were gonna lose the whole row of parking,
Yeah.
which is a third of the parking for that store to begin with. I just thought that they were just moving down the road, but that's interesting. What happens to all the buildings, like the oil change place? I know that when Kim was on the board, there was issues with the parking and everything there
Right.
already. So now what's gonna happen to buildings like that? Are they just gonna sit there? or-
They'll be eventually redeveloped.
Redeveloped.
So, there was that old junky car wash next door that's.
Yeah.
Junky car.
So the hope is that the person that owns that, they get together and they've got a full, and even the insurance place next door. You know, they're losing all their parking too, so. You know, now you've got an entire end cap that fronts a Villa Road that could be developed into
something else.
like, I don't wanna say a major shopping center, but a strip retail center that has parking all along the front.
Yeah.
Is that great development? No. Is it a much better use for the land than those things?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. So it's a possibility that that particular oil change place is gonna go away.
It not have zoning right now, so we
Well,
cannot give,
so
we can't give anybody a CO for it.
Right, so I mean, that makes me feel better about this one here, than that one, because I was like,
So we will change places.
yeah, how many we need, yeah.
So,
A lot of information.
So what's the answer?
start small, start small.
Did we
Are they-
not solve it already? Okay.
No.
Are
So
they,
what, as the professionals, what would you suggest we get that first bite of the elephant?
Mine would be to focus on our downtown. That's where I would see
You talking about the old downtown?
the old downtown. So
Okay.
have you spoken with Gene Vaughn?
no,
Some guy down there bought a bunch of the buildings. And he's calling me all the time, trying to do all this crazy stuff. I'm like, that's great, man. I can't help you because that's not what the code says. And I'd love to.
well, yeah, give them my number, have them call me.
Well, you know, that,
Because Ennis is really nice, I went to Ennis the other day, I couldn't believe it, how
Yeah,
they redid that whole,
So we don't have a downtown overlay, do we?
there is a suggestion in the comp plan to create an overlay. There's a very small overlay that I believe.
Historic?
Yes, historic, it's just about the building, it's not about uses and zoning and creating an area. So to me, it would be to create a plan for the core, right, of, hey, let's allow things like bars and restaurants and things like that, and then as you step out one ring away of streets, you allow the development of fourplexes and small multifamily and triplexes and
And they
things
have
like
very
that.
specific
Well, no,
parking,
Yeah,
landscaping,
and
streetscape requirements.
architectural and all of that. And then as you step one ring away from that, it's only triplexes and duplexes. And one ring away from that, you've got duplexes and single family. And it's just, and it's not even that you're making people do it, you're just allowing it to happen so that, and then, getting away from lot sizing standards and things like that so that you can allow, maybe a smaller house on a smaller lot, or allowing a house with a granny flat in the back, or something
Eliminating
like that. Yeah, eliminating setbacks, things
So to
that,
get that created, is that something that council has to direct you to do, that we could recommend to council?
yeah, so that's something that it would probably come from the council, as a directive to take into consideration the comp plan, what was it, one of the action items or something in the comp plan about,
development.
creating a downtown district.
Yeah, I think
Right.
we talked about.
Hiring a consultant to
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, like put it together as part of it would almost become like an appendix.
because a couple of years ago, you guys approved two-story apartments above, small retail, and that gap between, like the old post office, and then there's a steel building, and then there's a lot. And then next to that was wood frame building that kind of filled out that corner of the triangle.
Oh, yes.
And we
Yeah, they
provided-
they have not built that yet.
They had not built that yet, and I noticed that the old frame building next to it is for sale now.
Yes, there's some title issues, I believe, with that property, but, that's a really cool project, and the guy is just not,
That's it.
yeah, he's not a builder, so he thought that was gonna cost like something crazy, like $300,000 to build, and we're like, whoa.
Is
That's
that
$1 million building, dude.
Is that other place in compliance yet, that glass place?
No, so that's, and to me, you've got some pretty good redevelopment opportunities coming kind of all around here.
So how do, well, I know we won't have this conversation, we're still recording, but how do we as a city bring it to compliance? And, because that's been out of compliance for over a year.
Yeah, I mean, you don't, there's so many things that are outside of compliance in that place that you wouldn't really want it to come into compliance, or it would be so cost prohibitive to bring it into compliance.
Well, no, I'm saying as a city, if you're operating, I guess, out of compliance, how can the city force that to stop or to shut down?
We give them code enforcement violation letters, citations, and property, things like that.
So this overlay, that's something that's gonna happen eventually anyway because it's in the comp plan, or just something?
It is a recommendation of the comp plan to do that.
Do we need to make a recommendation to council to?
I don't know what the best way to do it is. It might be something where I requested in our budget for next year that we put in, X number of dollars for a downtown plan, to pay a consultant to do downtown plan, and then it.
The comp plan, is that the Freeze and Nichols document?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's a thick document. I haven't gotten to the downtown development part.
yeah. It's not much. It's a quick blurb with in the back, it's got recommendations or action items, and that's one. But to me, you've got what is already kind of mixed use, right? You've got some apartments, you've got some duplexes, you've got some single family. You've got a lot of lots that are open or double lots or things, or just junky old houses that could be, easily taken down, that have no real historic value
Yeah,
or
I'm
historic character, that you could redo or, redevelop.
I wonder if
Something more dense.
IDC and the EDC, once we started getting, monies generating from the data centers, would be willing to go in there and buy some of those other lots and,
I think they're a little more focused on the big stuff, that they're not gonna look at this incrementally. This incremental stuff is more, it's gonna be one-off. It's gonna be somebody that lives in the neighborhood that's gonna do this development, or somebody that and you tell them about that, and they get all pumped up about it and go freaking do it. It's a very small, one step, one person, incremental, it's not like some big developer's gonna come buy it all and do it all at once.
Well, we've got that new, in-betweener neighborhood that's going in,
of the townhomes.
the townhomes.
Nadine's,
Yeah.
right there.
Right there, yeah. That might be something to start. But I was driving the back way through DeSoto the other day and ran through one of those neighborhoods that's doing exactly what you're talking about, There's a 2-bedroom shotgun house next to some guy's new McMansion. They're just, it's just eating up all the older neighborhoods and turning them into something new. And, you see some of that like over in Hatchie, some of those old neighborhoods are being revitalized. But that's because a lot of those houses have character and they're worth saving. But a lot of the areas that you're talking about, there's not a lot of historical or architectural value
Right.
in those neighborhoods.
Which gives us the kind of leeway to say, yes, tear it down, but then make it look like it was built 100 years ago,
Yeah.
right? And that comes through like architecture. Part of what I would, you'd have a use base, but then you'd also, like Emma said, all your other zoning code stuff, like aesthetics and streetscapes and landscaping and stuff like that would all be kind of melded into the code as the downtown code. And to me, that's just, it's an easy place to start because it's small. The water and sewer's already there. The roads aren't great, but, part of the downtown plan.
You don't want to fix those till construction's finished anyway.
Well, yeah, and the part of the plan would be to, hey, every year, we're gonna do a section of street from here to there or here to there, and then, 20 years later, you got all brand new streets in there for No, not a minimal cost, but not an exorbitant cost. Right?
I got them all up. You can send.
But that, and it's also with our new government center connecting that,
Yeah.
with that main street.
Yeah.
Do we, just a side note,
They're already in.
do we know what's going on with Cherry Creek Park?
I'd have to talk to the parks director about that, I have no idea.
It was supposed to have reopened in October, it's still closed. It's Trinity River doing something. Doesn't look like they're doing much.
Talking about Panther
They're, I'm
Island?
sorry, yeah, I thought you were talking about
Cherry,
the other one.
Cherry Creek?
They're putting in a new sewer line.
Yeah.
There's an upsize of the sewer line. I don't know what, I'd have to check, Public Works is handling the
Okay,
liaison
I was
between,
just curious.
between that. That's what that is.
What's our assignment for next time?
Did you get all three of them?
Next year chapters?
Emma, you wanna do the next 3 chapters for next meeting?
Yeah, so 4, 5, and 6
Four,
for
five,
next
and
meeting,
six.
yeah.
Are you gonna send us some
Yeah,
more
yeah,
things to
meeting
focus on? That was great.
Oh, okay, great, I'm glad you.
That was very helpful.
Yeah, and that'll be time permitting, just in case, you know, if we have like a lot of items, then we may push it, yeah, to the next item.
What happened?
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I second. Oh.
And, all in favor?
Bookmarks.
Aye.
Aye. We have adjourned. Thank you, Leroy, appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.